All right, welcome back to the professional version of One Way Ratchet. We are ready for prime time, Dan. Apparently, we're now being video recorded, so I wore my best attire today.
You came dressed for the occasion. I'm Friday casual here on Monday, but you look great.
Now, what we should say, too, is that this is exactly what I wear every pod we've been doing for the last year plus. So I guess I was all along preparing to be on video. And I'm really impressed with our new One Way Ratchet logo up here. Dan, you really are taking us to the next level. So appreciate it.
They say like a little knowledge is dangerous or whatever, or a jack of all trades, master of none. I am trying to figure out this whole podcasting world, social media, which I detest, and everything.
Yeah.
And finally, I finally realized there's this platform out there called YouTube in which there's a lot of people.
Well,
it turns out that's where a lot of people spend a lot of time.
I get it. You were waiting to see if this thing called YouTube would actually take and be.
You don't want to rush right into it, no.
It'd be a thing that had legs, and apparently it might have some legs. So we're dabbling in that world, and we're gonna get right into it. White Lotus, season 3, episode 2. Lots to talk about, but Dan, let's start with your trademark spicy hot take.
The spiciest, hottest of takes. Yeah, we're adding a new wrinkle to the pod, right up front. Spicy hot take. Trent, I think my main takeaway on episode 2.
Yep,
it was a nothing burger. Very little happened in episode 2 that we didn't already know from episode 1. I'm a little perplexed.
It's and just full disclosure, you and I have not talked about this at all. This is our first meeting. We've texted about.
That's how it's so good, Trent. That's how our content is so fresh and so clean. It's unrehearsed.
And
very little prep.
As our listeners know, unrehearsed and very little prep is sort of our genre. I couldn't agree with you more. I sat down with my wife last night to watch, and she said, "Surely she didn't say surely, but she said." Undoubtedly there's going to be something big that happens because episode 1 was all like table setting.
Yes.
Dan, not a whole hell of a lot happened.
Tell me, well, we'll get to it. We're going to go through the thing. I've got one word that was the new information that we learned in this episode that we didn't have in episode 1. That word is Gary. We'll come back to that. Gary, That was newsworthy. Yep. Everything else was just an extension, right? We already knew
totally.
The dysfunctional family was going to have financial trouble. Okay, there was just more of that, more dysfunction, more brother on brother eye fucking, and then more financial distress. Okay, we got that. Hey, Goggins is he's a troubled soul. Okay, we got more of that, right? I mean, the girls suck. I already detest all 3 of those. The girls gone wild. Yeah,
they're awful.
Now we know how much. Yeah, we're really filling in the lines of how much they suck.
What is this? Has Mike White gone off the rails? Is it too hard to pull 3 good seasons? What's going on?
Hey, he's stuck too. We talk about it in the music pods a lot, how hard that is, right? The sophomore slump. To land the 3rd would be exceptional. I'm still intrigued. Oh, I'm fully invested. I think the production quality is off the charts good.
Absolutely.
The sound design, which I paid a lot of attention to on this one, is it adds a whole layer to the whole thing. The animal noises, like there is this ratcheting. Speaking of the ratchet, there is a ratcheting up of tension that you can feel. We'll get into this more when we break it down. But so I'm still ultra bullish. I'm super long on the show. I just think this episode 2, in many ways, could have just been combined into maybe one long premiere. I think we would have accomplished the same thing.
And this guy's a smart writer director. He knows what he's doing. He knows how to sort of hold the audience in the palm of his hand. So he's aware of this. And then is it building to some just crazy crescendo? Probably. And I agree with you. I'm bullish. I love the show. It is a pleasure to watch. It's like every moment of screen time is visually stunning. The way he sets up the camera. I mean, the fact that it opens with this like half underwater Jaws-esque, like above the water, below the water scene.
It's so hypnotic.
I wrote down last time we didn't talk about it, this idea of like nature as a character. And I think he does an amazing job in all 3 seasons, this one in particular, with nature being a character, and by nature I mean the natural world, but also like animals. So the prevalence of monkeys.
That's right here in my notes as well. One word in particular, monkeys. Oh monkeys. My God, are monkeys a theme? Yeah, I don't know. I know there's a lot of theories out there. There is a lot of theory crafting going on about the show, and I am trying to avoid it. I just don't want to be spoiled. Yeah, I'm avoiding it to the extent I can.
Yeah,
but for sure, there's monkey imagery all over this thing, and I'm remiss. I've got to make something that I feel so embarrassed that I didn't mention it, and I didn't notice it until someone had mentioned it to me. In the pilot, in the premiere, when we first are introduced to the Ratliff family, and you have the three kids sitting on the boat across.
Yep.
It is the see no evil, hear no evil, speak no evil image, like to a T.
Wow.
Sunglasses, headphones, and then Lachlan is drinking a Coke and so he couldn't speak. It is like, hello, how did I miss that? But they're really playing with a lot of monkey tropes. I think there might be a monkey in the middle thing developing with the women. There's sort of a 2 against 1 at all times.
You're right.
I don't know. So look, I'm spitballing here, and I'm way off track. I'm going to rein this back in. We got so much to get into.
Very exciting. I hadn't thought about. I'm going to go back and watch that
first
scene on the boat.
Okay, we'll come back to those things. Trent, do you have a spicy take to start this show?
Well, I mean, first of all, you just gave the spicy take of all spicy takes. I think that was my gut feeling. Is like, what? There's not a whole lot of development here. This could have been crammed into the first. All it did was deepen the sense that I got from the first one, which is like, yeah, Walton Goggins, Rick Hatchett is a bummer of a character. He's grumpy as hell. He's got something going on. The family is heading is sort of headlong hurtling towards financial ruin. I think they put even more into this idea that the younger brother is like possibly in love with his older brother.
Okay, let's pivot right there. Let's just break. Let's get into the show, and I think the way we got to do it is by character group, right?
Yep.
Okay, let's just start right there. You can pick up on it because let's just start with that because Mike White treated us once again to gratuitous male nudity and hey, equal opportunity. All here for it. But not from the brother. Yeah. I don't need to see it from the little brother.
I know. and then he, that in fact, I think it might be the opening scene after that first nighttime water scene.
Totally,
you see
right there.
You see Saxon lying down nude in his bed, and his brother Lachlan like staring at him with this sort of smirk, weird smile on his face.
That's
very
a looky-loo kind of face, man.
Yeah, and so we're immediately in this moment of like, what's going on? And then the very next cut is to Lachlan walking into the bathroom where just in the previous episode we'd seen his brother walk in the same way to go, watch porn and rub one out. So it's like, is he about to go do that? And it recreates the choreography of that scene almost exactly. So it sets you up to be like, oh my God, he's now just looked at his brother. He's going to go rub one out in the bathroom. So very unsettling. And the immediate then, the fact that within a few minutes of that scene, he's on the hammock with Piper asking, or sort of saying to her what his brother had said to him. So this idea that, the importance of triangles is big in this show.
Totally.
Triangular relationships. So you have the three women that we'll talk about, but then you have the three Ratliff siblings and how they're sort of playing off of one another and where our allegiances lying and lining up. And Lachlan seems to be sort of a linchpin of that because as we talked about last time, like Piper's all the way on one side, Saxon's all the way on the other. I was dying at that scene where he's like, yeah, Dad, I don't take drugs either. And she's like, you take Adderall every day. He's like, yeah, but that's so I can get my work done. Like, just so good. I love it.
Oh, I thought the scene you were going to talk about was the speshy spesh.
That was amazing too.
The flagpole rising to salute the masseuse.
As soon as he lay down on that bed, Sarah and I were both like, "Oh, he's definitely going to ask for a happy ending."
He had that shit-eating grin with the the towel over the eyes, but you could just that was some serious mouth work going on from Schwarzenegger there. That you are Man, you're right. It was Saxon. I agree. That looked like a mediocre situation.
And the fact that he said,
by the way, that was the name of the episode.
Yeah,
special treatments.
Special treatments. Oh my God! And it was this like that family, their boundaries, like the fact that in front of his mom he says, "I didn't get a happy ending," and the mom thinks it's like hilarious.
It's so wildly inappropriate how sexualized all the conversation and innuendo are. Like, do you joke with your mom about happy endings in front of your adult age sister? Right?
I mean,
it's just so creepy.
It's so creepy, and it puts them in a pretty particular spot where they're, I think one is inclined to like them because of how funny, and how pathetic and strange they are. But at the end of the day, they are not sympathetic characters at all.
Well, and so, I think the daughter's growing on me.
The daughter is,
I think I don't know who she is. I've never seen her that I can remember in anything before. Mm-hmm. I think there's this troubled innocence and a repression, like you talked about in our first episode, of her really repressing. She also is very triggered, clearly, by being called out on possibly being a virgin. Right. It's if you obviously if it didn't bother you, you wouldn't react that way,
right?
One way or the other, right? It clearly bothers her. So there's something going on there. She was also, I don't know if you caught this, and she's doing the spiritual work. She's doing yoga, but then one of those. What is the term you hit on last term about the bald guys in Thailand?
Oh, LBH, losers back home.
She had a real LBH looking at her during yoga, which is so. I mean, dude, come on. You get one sideways glance when there's a cute girl in yoga. You don't do three, and you don't do the downward dog, whatever. You don't go between.
Where you look back through. It's so good.
You need some eye discipline when you're at a yoga studio, dude.
Here's another thing I'll say that they've done with Piper, the Piper character, is they've been able to make her look both very young and childlike, and also much older. In from one scene to the next. There's a scene in episode 1 where she's sitting at the foot of her bed listening to the book on tape and reading along with the monk talking about prison. She looks like she could be 8 years old in that scene. Yeah. And then in the yoga scene, she looks like a full grown. Well, it's just really interesting how they in various moments make her. And I don't know if that's intentional or not. And maybe it's just
no. I think they clearly cast an innocent looking actress for this role.
But there are scenes where she also looks much older. So it's very interesting how they do that. And I think here's the thing. Last night's episode, you called it a nothing burger. I completely co-sign that description. Having said that, I am as intrigued as ever about what's going to unfold. And let me also say, so unlike you, I did watch the trailer. Okay. And I sort of regretted it a little bit, but not in my life's regrets, that's not in the top 5. And one of the things that was shocking to me about last night, was that in the trailer, there is a scene which showed up last night of the masked man going in and robbing the jewelry store. Okay. Now, I had thought to myself, that's going to be some sort of culmination of the episode of the series, like a gunman and coming in. And of course the series opens with the gunshots. So you're gunshots are coming. So when that masked man showed up in this episode, I was like, oh my God, that's not even the big thing. That's just a little waypoint in episode 2, in an episode that has not much of all. And so that was interesting to me, because I'm okay, they put this in the trailer, and obviously it's going to come back and we're going to figure out probably who did it and why. But it was really interesting the way that it showed up in this otherwise pretty, bland episode.
That's part of the reason why I like to avoid trailers these days, is because they are purposefully, whether it's misdirection or making you you would have thought this would have been maybe a thrilling episode instead of a quiet one. Right. But also, I think to their credit, they generally don't spoil too far into the season. They front load the first couple shows in the season trailer. So hopefully you're not too spoiled with stuff that comes later on.
Well, let me ask you. That was the only thing in the trailer, that the only thing that I saw in the trailer, I only watched it once, and it was like a month ago. The only thing that I could remember that was like exciting from the trailer, beyond just like you get the sense for these great characters and actors, was this like robbing of the store. So like we've already gotten past the one thing in the trailer that I was like, oh, that's going to be a big thing, and it just happened.
Oh, good.
Yeah,
well, that's good actually for you.
Yeah.
I meant to follow up on this when you were talking about Lachlan. They also they're playing a lot with the sexuality of the kids for sure. Okay, so but then later at the dinner, he definitely seems a little intrigued by the lady man servers at the resort.
The Thai lady boys.
The Thai lady boys. Okay, okay, what's your working theory on what is actually going on with Lachlan? Is he just confused? Is he repressed gay? Is he? I mean, what is he? What's going on?
I think he's like super confused, and he's grown up in this like obviously highly sexualized, boundary free household. So I think he's just sort of like, I think he really looks up to both his siblings, and has like maybe sexualized them in some way, both of them, because I think he's sort of enamored with his sister too, and intrigued by her. And he's real, they're out in the hammock together, and he's like looking at her, and he's like, besides, you're hot. Like, that's just such. So I think I think it's more confusion than it is just straight up like, I'm a repressed gay teenager. But also that discussion about the ladyboys is interesting because, that's I think that's where I would put him. This idea that like he doesn't really know, it's confusing, and he's unsure of what he wants is like my take right now.
He's in the right place for that box of chocolates. He's a winner. He's a winner no matter which one he bites into, right?
What a great joke that was.
Okay, so early for me. In every season, there was a real standout, right? Okay, so like Armand, to me, clearly in season one.
And by the way, Armand may be best character ever in the White Lotus universe.
Oh, he Pantheon, absolutely. Yeah. Right now, I think clearly, to me, Parker Posey is my initial front runner for amazing. Just chewing the scenery, stealing every minute of screen time she's on. Every line of dialogue, I just want to pause and go back and listen again.
It is just,
but a little foreshadowing. They always do this. There's death and decay sort of always like throughout. I wrote this line down when someone asked her like, oh, how'd you sleep? And she said, I slept like a corpse.
Yep.
Which is not a term. I slept like a baby.
Yep.
I slept like a corpse is that's a word that has some meaning.
Well, it's, and Mike White is such a good writer that there's no throwaway lines. So he's not going to just say like, oh, I slept like a corpse without like really steeping that with some important meaning. And you're right. Death and decay is a big part of this show, generally speaking, but this season in particular. And I just like, and if we talk about death and decay and also aging, there's a really interesting thread unfolding with the three women. And I don't want to get into them quite yet, but the Ratliff family is worth spending a couple more minutes on. But like the sense of aging and doing what you can to avoid aging. And then even with the Ratliff family commenting on the skin and the beauty of the servers, who may or may not be Thai ladyboys, as they use the term. It's really sort of an interesting. And then even when one of the three female characters has the book published by the owner's wife, the Thai former TV star, now singer, on the back of the book is her picture when she's young and in her
that was
her
a real
sort of glory, and
juxtapose.
she flips it over and it's just like a really this sort of dark theme overarching the whole thing. And then the young women who are married to the old guys. I love when Chelsea's like, oh, you have a lot in common, you're both old and bald. So good.
We're young and hot and fun,
and you
guys are old and grumpy and bald.
So okay, here's the thing. So the names of characters have been really fascinating me, right? And there's something, these names are, I think there's some meaning behind some of these names. Like with the three women, the one who is not the movie star and who's not like the hardworking lawyer, the one who's sort of married to a rich guy in Austin, her last name is Bohr. I mean, that's interesting. She's just sort of this
did you get that from the casting list? Did they ever say that?
It's on Wikipedia, their character names. It's Kate Bohr. That's interesting.
Bohr's got a couple. We can go a couple ways with Bohr.
Right. It's pretty vapid. Like she's pretty shallow. One gets the sense. You have Ratliff, like the name Rat, like the word. Rat. It's not Ratliff. It's just Ratliff. Like, and it's not Ratcliffe. It's just like rat. Yeah. The word rat. Big time word. Piper versus Saxon and Lachlan. Like it's just, I don't know. It's sort of an interesting. I think names are going to become are potentially, and I don't want to go too much into this, but names could potentially be prophetic in some ways, certainly as this show. Goggins' character is Rick Hatchett. Like,
oh yeah,
that's a pretty specific name. So I'm excited to see how these names like unfold in the way that one might expect them to, or maybe they won't at all, and it's like a bit of a red herring. But there's no. I guess my point is there's no detail in this show that is too small to at least pick at a little bit.
Absolutely,
and that's a good sign of a good show.
Absolutely, you're right.
Yep.
Okay, well speaking of Rick and Chelsea, yep. Like why don't we let's move on?
Yeah.
We got some backstory. I suppose we already sort of knew the guy was troubled, but now we know a little bit more about his history, assuming it's true, and it's pretty bleak. I think we should assume it's true, right? It's
well, okay. So I maybe disagree a little bit. I'm not sure. I'm not sure. I'm not sure I bought the story. He says my mom was a drug addict and my dad died before I knew him. My mom died from drug overdose when I was 10 or whatever. I'm not sure I'm ready to buy that story whole cloth. Because, and here are my reasons. One is that he's basically strong-armed into going to that woman anyway. Like, he's resistant from the jump. I'm not doing it. Well, we already paid, so you have to do it. So he goes, presumably, like, begrudgingly and without any reason to sort of actually dig into the therapy that's being put in front of him. Interestingly, that's the therapist that's in the opening scene with the masseuse's son during the shooting. So like, that's just an interesting, we see her now a week before we first met her. So I'm thinking like he's got no reason to really bare his soul and open up to this woman based on anything we've seen. Like, he is anti-therapy. He doesn't want to do it. He's a grumpy ass dude anyway. And he just sort of like comes up with what would be maybe the most sort of sad, pathetic origin story. It's almost like something out of Oliver Twist, and so I don't know if I'm going to buy it right out of the gate. Maybe
okay, you're not a buyer. That is fair. I took it because to me, I saw it as he said, "Fuck it, why not be vulnerable here?" And he told her the truth because it does really his emptiness and that feeling of nothingness. That really comes across. That you can read that all over him. Now, it could be for any number of reasons. It doesn't have to be that particular story. But I think we're going to get more. Obviously, it's going to connect with the owner guy who's in Bangkok, and whether or not that is okay. So that was my theory that was his dad. If I believe his therapy session, okay, maybe it's not his dad. Maybe it's the guy who killed his dad or something. Right. We'll see. It's definitely all going to play out.
So that's the other reason I didn't want to believe it, because I'm still hanging on to my theory that Jim Hollinger is his dad. And here's my take. Is his mom. I think the part about his mom is true. Like, drug addict, died when he was young. But my take is that the mom was like impregnated by Jim Hollinger, and then that ruined her life. He left her with this kid, and she died. And Jim Hollinger actually is his dad. And because he says the dad part next, he's like, and my dad, he died before I knew him.
Never knew him.
I think he's just saying that. I think it's Jim Hollinger. I'm still going to stick with that take.
All right. Fair.
You know,
okay. Look, hey,
these are lines in the sand that could be washed away by next episode. But there's fun.
No conclusive evidence to the contrary as of yet. So you can. We're both alive.
Except that he has said that his father died when he was young.
Right. That's right. He said,
but like died when he was young. Like he's dead to me.
Dead.
You know.
Well said.
He doesn't say dead to me, but like there's some wiggle room there, I think.
Fair, and a guy like Mike is going to wiggle. He likes a little swish. If you catch my meaning. Okay, that dinner. That was one of the more awkward dinners we've seen on screen in quite some time. The two fun young girls and the two old boring dads. It reminded me. I was trying to remember what was a dinner as awkward on screen. Do you remember in Breaking Bad when Jesse goes and has dinner with the Whites when they're falling apart?
Yeah.
And you could cut the tension with the knife at that dinner.
Totally.
It was that level of tension at this dinner to me.
Totally,
dude. It's also, I mean, guy, I always like uncomfortable humor and things like that. But when you're forced to watch uncomfortable moments, you just want to be like, somebody say something. It's not that hard.
I know.
Say something dumb.
I know. It was amazing. And he's like, oh, what do you do? Oh, this and that. What do you do? Oh, this and that.
Retired.
So good. Here's another little take that I have. The first moment that we see Rick Hatchett, Walton Goggins' character, have any semblance of like, I don't even want to say happiness because that's a bridge too far, but a sense of like something that's not just nothingness and dread and depression and darkness, is actually like right after the dinner. He actually even smiles at one point, or it's like could be taken for a smile given how glum he's been. And then very shortly after that, she comes to bed, he's awake, and she takes off her clothes, and then they like, it seems like they're about to hook up.
It was legitimate.
For me, it felt like something about that dinner and like maybe seeing this like alternate version of himself in Gary, the bald guy who's been in seasons 1 and 2. Maybe he was like, wow, like I don't want to become that, or I'm becoming that. And like, maybe this is a thawing in his sort of icy, grim, dark exterior, because it was for the first moment I was like, wow, okay, he's not actually, maybe there's something to him that we haven't seen yet.
That's a great point. That is a great point. He also came alive a little bit when he recognized in Gary / Greg a fellow bullshitter on the run, essentially. Right? It's like, oh, this and that, it's a pretty good profession, or some comment like that. But a little spark in the eye, like, okay. Right. It's like, okay, finally, Also, I thought there was that dinner scene was a very cute interplay between him and Chelsea.
Yeah.
Chelsea was great. Like just a great little face work with the eye work, like telling him, hey, just fucking say something, but cute, totally. And her spunk and just her relentless sort of positivity and fun and prodding him, it's growing on me a little bit. I mean, she's adorable. If get a little dental work and
well, it is, and it also makes me think like she's gonna be toast at some point in this series, because she like you start to be like, oh, what a she is like selfless. She'll do anything for Rick. She's like wants him to be happy. She's spunky. You go lie down. We're gonna hang. Like she is. And in my head, in the Mike White universe, I'm like, oh man, she's doomed based on that. Well, she's doomed.
She was already in a potentially deadly situation with a guy with a gun robbing a store in front of her. Right. That's peril. She noted this particular snake bracelet. Right. Yes. I don't know if you remember that.
Yeah.
And the camera definitely lingered on it as the robber was taking the stuff. I think that's a little bit. I think we're going to see that again somehow. Maybe as a way to identify who the thieves are or whatever. But there just seemed like a little. The camera stayed on that just a half a beat too long for it not to mean anything.
Yeah, no, for sure. And here's what's great about this show is like we have no idea. It could be nothing, but because it gets screen time and attention, and anything that gets screen time and attention, we have to pay attention to. So
it gets the podcasters talking about it.
Is it a false flag or what?
False flag operation. Yeah.
It's amazing. What about the robbery? Like, do you have any theories right now?
I do. I was going to ask you. Oh, I have a theory on this one.
Let's hear yours, because I don't really have one.
I rewatched that scene in particular, and it confirmed. I'm going to put this in confirmed in my mind.
Okay, great.
You ready for it?
I am, because I don't have a theory.
The Russian was totally in on it.
Okay.
He set the pick. He rolls up to the guard. Now, it's not an elaborate security system they have there. Let's just say if two armed robbers can, this is not a crack operation. But it was a locked down, a bolted down metal barrier. So they had to get the barrier up. Mm-hmm. If you go back and watch it, the Russian rolls up to the gate. Mm-hmm. He comes out. Give me the name again.
Valentin.
No,
right?
Valentin. No, I'm sorry. The guard.
Gaitok.
Okay, so Gaitok, also another character who's growing on me. We'll get to him.
I love him.
He's great. I love him. He comes. They're making conversation. Is friendly. He opens the gate. As soon as he opens the gate, the Valentin pulls forward about another bike length,
so he can't
exactly where he couldn't close it. And then says, "Oh, hey, let's you got to figure he comes to work every day. You wonder how many times he stops and actually talks to Gaitok, right?"
That is such a good call, and I hadn't even thought of that. But you're right. Like, he's probably in on it. It was probably the plan, and he's like, all you got to do is stand in front of the gate.
Because you just have to get a diversion to let them get in, because they're coming out. Right, they can pistol whip them, whatever. But getting in, if you pistol whip them, who knows? Maybe someone calls security. It's too late. Right.
Holy crap! Good call.
Well, it's okay. So I think Valentin's in on it. Valentin is a creepy dude. He's a minor character. I don't think we need to spend too much. He's a liar.
Yeah.
But who do you think? Do you have a theory on who the robbers are? I mean, this one to me seems pretty clear. But
see, I don't have any theory on who the robbers are.
We talked about it last show. Who has the guns?
Oh, the guards for the family.
Exactly. They fit the profile. They're about the sort of right size, shape. They have guns
and trained. Like those guys knew what they were doing. Like
they knew what they were doing. They knew exactly what they were doing.
And because they work there, they know the weaknesses and they know the thing.
Exactly.
That's very
they were so heavily masked, like as to reveal nothing.
Right.
Whereas if it was a random criminal, I don't know, maybe they wouldn't go to that kind of lengths to hide their identity.
Yeah, because I think countries like Thailand, I think they're really strict on guns. So you're right. It's like who has guns, has guns, and people don't have guns aren't floating around there the way they are here. Is my understanding of some of those Asian countries. So that's a great call. That's a great call.
Yeah. All right, well let's move on then to Gaitok and Mook. Because what a sweet, them. Oh my God, do I want this to work out for these two?
Me too.
Holy crap. They are so sweet. And you can tell she's fronting. She's a little smitten with him too. She knows it, but she's putting up this act like she's hard to get.
Yep.
And maybe of course, maybe they have been friends for a long time. So it's a little awkward, but clearly after he got hit over the head with a gun, I mean, that's a big deal. And she was that whole look in her eye at the end to me said she's fallen down the pathway towards him.
Yeah, I really like him. He seems like he's just got a nice face. Like he seems like such a nice character, and I'm trying to think analogies to him in previous seasons. There was that really great native Hawaiian who worked at the resort in episode 1. In the Italian episode, there was a one or two characters who were like Italians who worked at that hotel, and they were sort of great sympathetic characters who played a role, but like maybe didn't get wiped out at the end, which is nice. So my hope is that he survives, and I want Luke and Gaitok to make it happen.
But that's just
make it work.
That's just Mike White raising the stakes, right?
I know.
We're getting emotionally connected. Somebody's not going to make it out of that resort alive. We know that at least one person floating.
That's right.
That's right. The number of gunshots, you got to think.
Do you have a prediction right now over what body is floating?
No. Zero. I'm done with that. I thought I was so on it in season 2.
Mm-hmm.
I made the mistake of going down some of the rabbit holes online on season 2. There was this whole theory of who it's going to be, and totally wrong.
Yeah.
Total waste of time. So it's part of the reason why I'm just avoiding it now. It really is. It's speculation. I mean, it's just people looking for any kind of traction online and throwing it out there.
Right. Fuck.
I also, it's like if you're wrong, it was a waste of time. If you're right, you're spoiled. So what's the point?
Right. Totally. Okay, so let's go back to Tim Ratliff, the father.
Oh yeah, we didn't finish him.
I want to just talk about him for a minute. I mean, he is obviously, there's this great moment early on in the episode where he calls his secretary back home, and she says, "Oh, someone from the Washington Post calls." He's like, "Oh, you mean the Wall Street Journal?" She's like, "No, the Washington Post." So he now all of a sudden understands this is much bigger than like one article in the Post.
Yeah, and also not just a business story, maybe.
You're right, not just a bit. Right, exactly. Because Wall Street Journal suggests, it's a business thing. Now it's like a bigger thing. And then he finally gets through to Kenny Wynn, who's like
another
frantic.
Good name. A guy who's your investment in, you're going to come to regret later. A guy named Kenny Wynn, right?
Exactly. And you hear through the phone the just absolute desperation in Kenny Wynn's voice.
When he said he was suicidal, I believed him on that call.
He said it twice.
He
said, I'm going to kill myself. And the second time, Tim Ratliff goes, "Good. Like, I hope you kill yourself." It's unbelievable. And he says, "If you don't, I'm going to come and kill you myself." I mean, it's just you realize the desperation that he is now. And by the way, like, let's take a big step back. And obviously neither of us has been in a situation akin to Tim Ratliff, but that sense that can land on you when something is wrong and yet you're in a place where you're supposed to be enjoying yourself. Like what a juxtaposition, what a difficult, he's here with his family, he's supposed to be enjoying himself, and he is like having this existential crisis unfold, like, 10 time zones away, and
other
just feeling
side of the world on the night and day of the U.S. Right? Like you said, I mean, you're totally disconnected.
Right.
You got to be right. There's almost no overlap on the working day between the two, and you are now maximum stress because you don't have any information. You're totally cut off. You're fearing the worst.
Right.
You can't defend yourself. You're not there.
Right. And he says,
and then you got to put on a happy face for your family.
Right. And he's not doing a great job of that. Like, he's clearly burdened.
Oh, yeah.
But, I love that scene when he's running on the treadmill, like facing the jungle, but there's the glass and he's just like sprinting. And this idea of like he's sprinting, but he's not getting anywhere. It's fucking awesome.
Spot on. That's so well said. That's so well said. It's also like you're caged. You're in a place that probably has some of the most beautiful hikes.
Right.
Go do that outside instead. Right. Inside an air-conditioned gym, like on a treadmill, just running in place.
I couldn't agree more. It's just they do such a good job framing that, and he's trying to keep it together for his family, but his family is like, sort of falling apart in their own way. But he's dealing with this, he during his day is like nighttime where he's from. So nothing's happening. And then as he's like heading to bed, all of a sudden shit's blowing up. It's just like, what a recipe for disaster for this guy.
That is that whole one of my favorite. I don't know what you call it. There's a creative motif, I guess you call it, of the tightening of the screw.
Yeah,
or the walls closing in.
Yep.
And that is, you can feel that. You actually feel even if it's the natural world, but it is just the world is closing in.
Yep.
On this guy.
Yep.
And that, it's just going to go to that last scene where that tracking shot, which was incredible. That's just, he's looking at the family. He's feeling like totally trapped, doesn't know what to do. He's hearing all these weird, bizarre monkey sounds everywhere. And then the camera tracks back and you really just feel like almost like the animal kingdom, like in the opening sequence, like all that mayhem. It's like that's literally going to descend on him. And I'm sure that's how he feels. Like that's clearly how he feels at that moment.
It's so crazy. And I think, we're heading towards some big disaster, and what's it going to be and how's it going to unfold, what's going to be the impact on the family. And I love his line. He's like, I did this and I only got fucking $10 million. Like, I love that.
That was a great little, that's a line that reveals a lot.
It's like, oh, if it had been 100 million, like, it would have been worth it. But like, I sold my soul.
$10,
and it was only
you're going to go to jail for $10. I mean, come on.
So good. Really, really good.
I love it.
And also like a nice juxtaposition for the, smash and grab burglary where they probably, brought in $50,000, but like super violent, in your face, smash and grab. It's just like interesting, this sort of corporate crime versus smash and grab burglary crime, and how we think about those things. And he's getting this big high powered attorney. I don't know, it's just there's some commentary, I think, on crime too, and like how we think about crimes.
That's smart. Yeah, I didn't
and the perpetrators of crimes.
But you're totally right. You're totally right. Okay. Speaking of crimes, this one was a scene stealer. Segue. Belinda. Belinda is doing some good work with her 2 or 3 minutes of screen time.
Love Belinda.
She is quite smitten with her her massage guy, whatever. If he has a name, I forget. But that line,
he does
when he comes out first. The gratuitous little briefs. You can come wearing a robe. I think typically that's a lot of people come to their service in a robe. But she's just like, she couldn't even like she had no eye discipline whatsoever. She did like the full, up and down. Yeah. And then he's like, how do you want me? And she's like, on my stomach. On my stomach.
It's so good.
It's so good.
His name is Porn Chai, by the way.
Porn
Chai.
Porn Chai.
Which is a very common.
Well, there's porn in every Mike White show that I'm familiar with.
That's right. And that's a great, there's a great tension between them. She's there to learn, but it's also very sexualized. And the fact that he comes out in the briefs and she's like, they make no mistake. They look at her and she's like,
if that was a cartoon, if that was a Tom and Jerry, the eyes would be bulging on it.
It's so funny.
Oh, Belinda, but I
love her.
Also high tension because something good has to land for her at some point, right? We just want that for her.
The fact that she was in season 1. Was she also in season 2?
No.
Are you sure?
Pretty sure.
I thought the Stifler's mom character took her to Italy with her.
No, she took Portia to Italy with her, and
That's right.
I don't know that there was any ever mention of Belinda.
That's right.
Season 2.
That's right.
That I remember. I couldn't.
No, I think you're right.
I also remember because I didn't see the trailer, but I saw because I wanted to know, hey, when's season 3 coming out? And I saw some of the casting news, and I saw Goggins, and I saw her in the casting news, and I thought, oh, great, she's back. And it struck me as like, okay,
you're
she
right.
must not have been in season 2.
You're right. I just confirmed on Wikipedia that she's reprising her role from season 1. But so if and this goes back to something you said earlier about timing. Like, does this take place before or after season 1? I think most likely it's after. And when one thinks about Belinda specifically, like, she went through this really traumatic, Hawaii was sort of a traumatic. She was there when all the shit unfolded. It was a hard time for her. And here she is, like, trying to escape all that, recover from that. And we know it's heading for, a disaster. And her son in that opening scene of episode 1, he's only concerned about his mom and where is she?
Very concerned about her.
So already we're like, oh my God, is she going to be on the receiving end of one of those bullets and whatever. So that's something that is on my mind. Another thing I'm paying, as one does with this show, very close attention to the opening sequence. And we talked about how we don't love the song, but I've been paying really close attention to the tapestries. And I think you can sort of, you can find some references to scenes in the show in the tapestries, right? Like, we've talked about that.
Oh, I'm going to guarantee you that there are several Reddit deep dives on the tapestry. You could probably
Right.
get a frame by frame breakdown of the tapestry.
Yep.
And I'm dying to do it. I just don't want to be spoiled on anything.
So I haven't done that, but I did pay very close attention to the scene, to the opening last night, and paused it in some points. And there's a moment where there's a body floating
very similar to the opening, right?
To the opening, and so if memory serves, I think it's a darker skinned character who's floating, which, you know, most of the characters in the tapestries are darker skinned because it's like
dark hair,
looks like a
for sure.
Southeast Asian thing. But, you know, is that a reference or not? Who knows? But it's just something to keep in mind. But I think Belinda is like pure goodness. I mean, she's trying to help people. She's trying to recover. She's so appreciative. She feels like she's lucky to be there. So, you know, I want the best for Belinda. I want the best for Gaitok and Mook. Everybody else is like terrible.
Do you think, okay, so getting back to the timeline, do you think we are meant to believe that she recognized Greg from season 1 from Hawaii? That's probably the one and only place that she would know him from.
Absolutely. And she looks at him and does like a triple take. During dinner.
Now, I remember in season 1, Tanya confided in Belinda and talked about her trouble in her love life and things like that. But I don't recall any scenes in which Greg and Belinda were together in season 1. I don't think they really had an interaction, but in a small resort, she'd probably be very aware of who he was, or at least seen him.
Does Greg or Gary or whatever leave during? He leaves like partway through season 1, doesn't he?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
No, he leaves in season 2.
Oh, it's season 2.
They kind of meet near the end of season 1. And then they stay together. Yeah,
that's right. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, so okay,
she definitely recognizes him.
She recognizes him. Okay, so I'm gonna sort of update my view on this. I think it's linear. I think it could have been a prequel, but I also think Mike White's not playing those kind of games. He's not. It's not Westworld. Right. The entire season's a mystery to unravel thing. No, there's a murder mystery in it that it's all gonna be very linear in the end and all very clear.
Right.
So
no, but
so this is sequential. She recognizes him from Hawaii. He is involved in something that would force him to go to Dubai, which is an interesting choice, which has no extradition treaty with the U.S. for those scoring at home, as far as I know. And I don't know if Thailand does either. But he is, if you are on the run in the world under a new identity, Dubai and Thailand probably seem like two decent places to go. Well, and you have some money, and now you find you've fallen into some money. Yeah.
And that's why I think Rick recognizes a kindred spirit in Gary during that dinner, or Greg or whatever his name is. And I think that's, you know, tells us even a little more about Rick Hatchett, because it's like, oh, he sees himself in this guy, and
just with more hair.
And he's ripping on Gary. He's like, oh, well, obviously his girlfriend is a prostitute. And Chelsea's like, no, they met, you know, in an online app in Dubai. And he's like, yeah, exactly. And I think, you know, it also calls into question, like, how did Rick and Chelsea meet? And he's particularly critiquing something in Gary that he probably sees in himself too.
Yes.
You know, it's something he's ashamed of in himself. So he's critiquing Gary on that front. So it'll be interesting. I mean, look, I agree. It was an episode that didn't have a lot in it, and yet it makes me even more excited for episode 3, because it's like something's gonna happen.
Even in a wheel spinning episode, there's a lot in there.
Yeah,
there's so much character work. Let's not forget about the girls. I think not a lot to say. The dynamic is playing out exactly like every guy knows a 3-girl dynamic will play out, which is within the first 24 hours, it's 2 against 1. Within the next 48 hours, it's going to be another 2 against 1. It's going to be every 2 against 1 at some point.
That's right.
It's going to completely fall apart. I don't understand. It is so frustrating, as you have more daughters than I do. We both have daughters. But the female dynamic is brutal. It's so competitive. Not always, of course. This is not universal, but it's very common. It's like the stereotype. A bunch of guys get together. It's like a frat house. It's like bro down. Yep. A bunch of girls get together. It's a viper's den. You know, it's just they're at each other. These are supposed to be like lifelong good friends.
Right. And they are immediately, as soon as one leaves the room, it's immediately.
As soon. But okay, like, but here's my question, Trent. I said that, but in reality, it's only the short-haired blonde that's been in the middle of both times so far.
Right.
I think we'll. Do you think she's the troublemaker, or I think it's just, or more that it's just an unstable situation?
I think any triangular relationship is complicated, and I think it's played out. And they each have like, you know, so their names are.
Jacqueline is the actress.
So Kate Bohr is the one in Austin.
The short blonde hair.
Jacqueline is the actress.
And then who's Carrie Coon is who?
Is Lori.
Lori. That's right, Lori.
Okay. Yep. So, you know, each of them has like a thing that you know, so Lori's been really professionally successful. She's like a big time lawyer, though we get a hint maybe she didn't make partner or whatever, but she's got like her career. Jacqueline is this like famous actress, but you get the sense that like her relationship with this younger guy isn't great, and that's empty. And then you have Kate, who's like married really well. Her husband's uber successful, but like she doesn't know who she is, maybe because she just like married well and is now just like a rich housewife in Austin. So, you know, they all have their like things that they've done and then these negative things. And when they're together, they're celebrating the positives. And when there are two of them, they're like ripping on the negatives about the other one. It's just like really interesting how they go into that dance. And I don't know which, like, I feel like I maybe like the actress the best of the three. She does seem like sort of most authentic for some reason, or I like her the best of the three. But there's a great line from Parker Posey. She's like, all actresses are prostitutes.
Well, there's prostitution theme throughout White Lotus,
which is
let's
amazing.
Get into that.
It's an amazing line.
To me, that was the striking like question mark of the episode, is when the Kate character goes to the Ratliffs and is to Parker Posey like, I know you.
Yeah, right.
We spent a weekend together.
Unbelievable.
Parker Posey's reaction made zero sense to me.
It was so good, and I loved it. Yes, it made zero sense, and it also made me think, like, is there something to that? I don't know if there is.
There's definitely something to it. There has to be.
But the way she was like, you know, I don't know her. Like, we spent a weekend
Big
together.
Deal. I mean, she's right about that. We randomly spent a weekend together 10 years ago by accident. I mean,
at a baby shower.
Who cares?
She's like, who cares? She's like, I don't need more friends.
It was more the way she interacted with somebody at a nice resort. Like, she is either lacking that gene, but I think given their pedigree, right, this sort of wealthy North Carolina Duke family, she's probably in a lot of social settings. Like, she knows how to navigate those. So it was very purposeful about this woman, I think.
Yeah,
we'll find out. I think we're definitely going to find out.
We'll find out more, and then I think that's the scene, or maybe over the dinner later that night. I guess it's maybe over the dinner that night where she says to her kid, she's like, "You're all beautiful, and you were born with money, and people are going to try to take things from you." It's like, what kind of what kind of parenting is this? It's unbelievable.
Your world's about to be reset.
I mean, can you imagine saying such a thing to your children? Like,
no, but we know people that, in so many words, would impart that kind of wisdom.
Mm-hmm.
All right, we're at the. I think we're at the end. Any last takeaways or predictions?
No, I mean, I think I'm predicting a more fireworks in episode 3. I don't think we can go 3 episodes in a row with like just more character development. There'll be some fireworks.
I'm with you.
I hope there are.
I wanted to note one thing. You noted, and I agree that the music is great in the show. And it's. I meant to say it last week. There's a great. It's like a recurring song. I think it might be. We'll see if it's in multiple episodes.
Khruangbin song.
Yeah. It's called Maria Tambian. Maria Tambian.
I love Khruangbin.
They're great.
I'm going to see them. I'm going to see them at Bottle Rock in Memorial Day.
Oh, I didn't know they're. Oh my God!
Sunday at Bottle Rock. We got tickets. You should go.
Oh, if I'm in town, I'll definitely go.
Yeah,
I saw it. They're at Outside Lands like 3 or 4 years ago.
They're the best.
They are so groovy. They're outstanding. Just three. It's just a trio. I mean, from Texas, like they're great. Okay, so that's a great song. But then there's one last thing. Okay, this really struck me. I noted it in episode 1, and then it just kept on happening in episode 2. Okay. I have no idea what this means. It's probably nothing. But Trent, have you clocked at all how many references there are to different countries and geographies around the world?
No.
Okay. I just jotted this down right before the show.
Okay.
In no particular order, these are places we've heard in the first 2 episodes.
From this season.
Yeah.
Okay.
The U.S., Thailand, England, the North Pole, Doha, Australia, Russia, Cancun, India, France, Canada, Belgium, Dubai.
Jesus. Wow.
They all come up one way or the other. And randomly, like for example, when you meet the health treatment guy in the beginning, and the last thing, he's Russian. Ooh. But it's like, why would you invest that line of dialogue? Why would you have to meet this prostitute girlfriend in Dubai? Like, these are
right.
Why is Rick prevented from going to Australia? They are just name dropping countries all over the map.
Interesting.
It probably means nothing.
Oh, Brunei. Did you say Brunei?
No. Brunei's on there?
Kenny Wynn is from Brunei. Like, he goes to do an investment in Brunei.
Oh, yeah. Good call. Excellent. So I think that's just something. Let's just keep a running tally.
Love it.
It's not going to be a massive plot thing.
One last thing. We know that Rick Hatchett is planning to go to Bangkok. He's leaving the grounds of the resort. Yes. And I was trying to think in seasons 1 and 2, like when people leave the grounds of the resort. So I couldn't remember from season 1, but I do remember season 2 in the Italy one when they go to that other town.
Yeah.
Like, that's when stuff starts to heat up. So that's going to be particularly interesting to me.
Or when Tanya goes to the castle with the high-end gays.
Yes, exactly. So, does Rick end up doing that? Does he end up going to Bangkok? And he decides after he hears, the owner's wife say she's going back to Bangkok. So he's like, I'm going to Bangkok. So there's obviously something there. We don't know what it is. I told you my theory. And in spite of what he said to his therapist, I still think Jim is maybe his dad.
He also has a very special hatred of her. When she's singing, by the way, what a great performance. When she put on the soundtrack and now it got a little groovier. Yeah. His look at her at the end. Yeah. If you Google seething, there's the AI just shows you a 1 minute clip of
Goggins.
Rick Hatchett fucking watching her. Jesus, that's seething.
That's right.
So, okay. Well, this is exciting. Good. Trent, I have a little update, a little show note update.
Let's hear your update.
I'm still in Florida. I've been here for quite some time, as you know, all kinds of family stuff. But the next episode 3, we might be able to do live.
Oh, amazing.
Can we might have to record an instant take if we go live Sunday night.
Like right after.
Yeah, like a 15-minute instant take, and then I do the real show.
Love it. Later. I love it. And it shows out here at 6:00. So, 6:00 Sunday night, that's where I will be.
We can do an instant take, and then like 3 or 4 cocktails later, then we'll do the real show.
Exactly.
After we have whiteboard.
Amazing. All right, my man.
Great stuff.
Good rip. All right, I'll see you soon.
All right.
Bye.